All right, go.
So I can do roll call for you, Rob. Take some of that off your
I
hands.
have it, but okay.
Roxanne Pecora. Ben Gadali.
Present.
Thank you, Glenn. Mitchell Cohen. John Conyer.
It's
He's
here.
here.
He was here a minute
All right.
ago.
Yeah, he's still here,
Muted.
must be muted.
Somewhere around. Scott McCarthy.
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Hanson.
I'm here.
Present.
Sorry, I booted myself.
All right. Ms. Lanzetta.
Here.
Moscato.
Here.
Mr. Bogus.
I'm here.
Mr. Wilkin.
Here.
Mr. Baden.
Here.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Miss Welton.
Here.
Mr. Watkins. Mr. Almquist.
Here.
Mr. Markowitz.
Here.
Mr. Rudikoff. Mr. Travers.
Check the attendees here too.
Mr. Murray.
Here.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Present.
And the other two positions are vacant. Thank you. We do have a quorum.
Excellent. Okay, I want to welcome everybody to the Ulster County Planning Board meeting for February. I want to thank you for entrusting me to lead this group for the next year. I thank you for that. I do want to share one personal thing about myself. Over the past 2 years, I've developed a vision problem, which most of the time doesn't bother me, but it does create a problem sometimes in reading fine text in dim lighting. The bigger problem I have is facial recognition at a distance. So if we ever get back in person and I act like I don't know you from a distance, that's what's going on for me. Otherwise, it shouldn't have any impact on it. So moving on, educational training opportunities. I see Mary Ann sent something out, I think it was today, on a webinar for climate, energy, and comprehensive plan. I think it's a 2-hour evening webinar towards the end. I think it's beginning of March.
Mr. Chairman, minutes,
Say again?
minutes.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I apologize.
I'll make the motion to accept them.
I'll second that.
Any opposed?
Can you do us a favor?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry. If
Yes,
you
McLaughlin
can
moved it.
identify yourself when you make motions, I appreciate it.
Yes.
Sure, McLaughlin moved it.
Almquist second.
Okay, any opposed to the approving the minutes? Then the minutes are approved for January. Okay, now on to educational training.
And
opportunities.
Dennis, Mr. Rudikoff has joined us. If you can mark
I
him.
saw it, yep.
Yep.
Dennis, are you, if there's any plans for the county to do any training this spring?
Say that one more time.
Is there any plans for the county planning department to do any training this spring, I'll say?
If the board would like training this spring, we'll be happy to arrange it to occur. I would like to do an overview of our housing work that's out there, to be honest with you. And I am getting some pushback from my consultants that want to have a complete program in place before we do it. But I think we can go over what the housing situation is and some of the housing initiatives that we're talking about to all planning board members. I think that would help. But if not that, then the other thing to think about is going back and having a conversation just on planning 101, because there's so many new members at the local level. in terms of planning boards. And then last but not least is we could ask our friends from Barton LaJudas, where Glenn Gadali had essentially brought that individual in, and they've given us some other topics to talk about, and we could start that discussion as well. One more time, bringing in a guest speaker, and we can make a presentation to the planning boards about some of the work the Transportation Council is doing. We could also make an effort with respect to some of the work that we're doing as it relates to climate at the county level, or have the communities report on climate at the county level. There are a couple of things that we can do, but if the board wants to or suggest it, then we'll work to make sure that sometime either in May or June, we'll have a training session. What's the sense of the board?
Dennis, Mike Baden, I think the Planning 101 is a great idea. I'm hearing a lot of frustration from consultants, and a lot of planning boards are really getting really wrapped up in minutia, which is extending application periods. And I think a good sort of training would be, what planning board should be looking at for review. But I also think the housing is important too, and maybe do both, since we can do them by Zoom. I don't think there's anything, even if the governor changes the executive order, I don't think there's anything to stop us from doing a training by Zoom.
No, absolutely not. No, it's not a board, it's not a meeting, it's a training session.
I like Mike's idea of doing both those. I think they're both important.
I would
Okay.
second that too, and just say that I would open it up for zoning boards too, because I know we have new members of zoning boards, and so if you did a planning and zoning board 101, that would be helpful.
I'm not sure about other planning boards, but I know the one in Olive is much busier now than they've ever been. And they're being hit with things that are just kind of, I say oddball, and I can't give you a good example, but not your normal things coming before them. So it's a little struggle for them to know how to handle them correctly.
Okay.
Dennis, it's Vince here. That training that you did a couple of years ago, kind of like an orientation to the board and what the board does and so on and so forth. That might be beneficial
Yep.
since we got a lot of new members. That might help.
Okay.
This is
Just a
Tom
thought.
Lincoln. In Plattekill, they're having 2 new members on the planning board this year, plus the one that replaced me last year. So they might have someone else going off in another year. So it was like half the board is new in Plattekill, and they probably need to have something like that and as well. Also, I was the one that forwarded that Orange County training to Mary Ann this morning. I was kind of surprised by Orange County doing this. They usually do a more intense training in April into May. So I would expect the spring training then coming out too. And I don't know what that will be, but I'll forward. I'm on their mailing list, so I just forwarded it to Mary Ann.
Okay.
Good. Okay, any other comments about educational opportunities, training?
Just a
Drew,
comment.
one other point, Association of Towns, their annual conference that they hold in February, that is normally in the city, they've gone virtual, and because of that, it's a very reduced price. It's 2.5 days of very intensive training. You walk out of there with about 12 to 15 hours of training. So it is, I think you can still sign up since it's being done virtually. I think they opened it back up. It's President's Day weekend is when it's usually held, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I believe.
Mike, if you have that
Yeah,
link,
this
can you
is-
send it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on, any community reports? Nobody's got community reports. Well, I'll speak up for Town of Olive. There's two things going on in our town. One I think you know about already. The work has already started on replacing what we call the 5 Arch Bridge down in Boyceville across the Esopus on 28A. They took down all the trees pretty much, and they've been working even during all this cold weather. So I assume in the spring they'll start working on probably the bridge abutments type thing. The other is, I just got an email from our supervisor. We will be starting the process of
Dennis, this is Mitchell Cohen from Hurley. I'm having the planners conduct a 1-hour training. I don't know if you can hear me. Is the internet
you're
bad?
kind of garbled.
You're in and out, Mitch. So
Yeah.
why don't we go on with Drew Bodgis's report for the community? We'll come back to you. How's that?
The other thing we're starting is I'll say approving the sewer district law and setting up the sewer district for the town or for the hamlet of Shokan. That's a pretty big project. It's going to serve a little over 400 houses and businesses. And I'm not sure that I don't think the design is quite done yet, but we've got the sewer law already created and we got to work on passing that and declaring the sewer district. I don't remember if I shared this with you, but we have a sewer district in Boyceville and now we'll have one in Shokan. And what ultimately will happen is the plant in Boyceville will shut down and become a pumping station and pump the sewage uphill to Shokan and have a plant right there on Route 28 for that. So that process is starting. I think that's all I've got.
I have one for the Village Authorities, Vince here. The village board last month went to bond in relation to dredging our reservoir up in Blue Mountain. It has to be done after so many years, since that's our water supply for the village. The work will start over the spring, early summer, and it'll be completed by fall. So, and also our new ladder truck for the Village Authorities Fire Department, hope to be put in service within the next couple of weeks. It's just having its lettering done and radios and such put installed. So that's all I got.
Harry Hansen from Marbletown. We're in the process of looking at our signage law and doing a revamp of signing across the whole township.
Good. Okay, Mitch, did you still have something that you wanted to share?
Yeah, my internet might be really slow and I'm sorry. But I'm coordinating training with our planner on solar arrays and the effects on like hydrogeological effects, clearing woods versus using open land, and how it's brought to the energy users. And I'm not sure how many people on the county planning board are aware of how the system works and how, what's happened, but because I'm relatively new, and if not, that might be a good training subject.
Whoops, looks like we lost you there, Mitch. Okay. Anyone else for the community report? All right, we'll move along. On the planning board reports, I don't have anything for the chairman or committee reports. So Dennis, I'll turn it over to you for the financial report. Oops, I think you're muted.
Trying to cut down the feedback. Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're in really good shape. We are, we have a pretty robust budget this year. Thanks to the some of the money coming from ARPA and some of the money coming from a fairly robust budgeting process from the administration and approved by the legislature. So we're going pretty well, and we did get the position for a senior planner for housing. So we're working to fill that position right now, and advertisements are out. If anybody has anything anyone that they know is interested and has the qualifications, have them submit a resume. And they can submit to me, or it's out on Indeed and other locations, but they can submit. That's all for me on financials.
All right. How about the environmental notices?
Nothing for me that I want to speak of. Anybody has any questions, let me know. One of the things I would say is that that's not here is we haven't seen any response yet from the Department of Environmental Conservation for the draft environmental impact statement that was filed by the New York City with respect to discharges to the lower Sopus. It's been quite some time since that application was filed. We just have not seen any sort of response or indication from them about the acceptance and moving that forward to a comment period, which is somewhat odd.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. All right. Anything on the communications, Dennis?
Communications, unless any of the members have questions.
All right. How about the director's report then, and staff reports?
Bert's on a call, and I know Bert's working on an ag application. So,
well, yeah, I'm working on a farmland protection plan application, and it's coming along. It's essentially written. But Dennis asked me to sit in on the farmland protection working group for ag and markets. And the discussion on the 26th, I believe, focused on the competition between solar development and farmland, particularly prime farmland. And it's a subject that they're looking at very closely. In fact, today, American Farmland Trust released a report, and Ag and Markets will have a report in the fall. American Farmland Trust estimates that about 60% of New York farmers rent some or all of their land. And because of solar development, in certain areas in New York State, there's an increase in rental prices. So they worry more in Suffolk County, and the Mid-Hudson is something that they're looking at. And NYSERDA has a build ready program that's looking for brownfields, green, or gray fields development to try to avoid development on farmlands, solar development. And American Farmland Trust is going to come out with a recommendation for, well, I guess, I don't know, in their report, I haven't read the report, it just came out this afternoon, but they may offer a recommendation directly to the commissioner, and then they'll come out with mitigation payments, vary across the state. But they said that the Mid-Hudson will have higher mitigation payments, so upwards of $3,000 an acre. So it's something that they're taking very, very seriously, and it's just one of a number of cost pressures that are bearing down on New York farmers. But that's a discussion for another day.
And I would say that our Farmland Protection Board has written to the state relative to these conversions of solar, these conversions of farmland to solar. I would also say that there is somewhat of a mistrust with respect to mitigation payments going to NYSERDA rather than Ag and Markets. Having NYSERDA take mitigation payments for that doesn't seem to be an appropriate thing to do. I'll leave it at that. Other things that we're working on is we are in the process of hiring consultants to do a study on Route 9W. in the town of Ulster that runs basically from the former Red Lobster or the existing Red Lobster up to 299. We would anticipate that we'll be interviewing consultants next week. We're in the process of issuing an RFP for a rail safety study in the city of Kingston, which is focusing not only on intersections, but also adjoining land use and trespass on the tracks. We are working on the tower in Saugerties is going to go to construction. We've approved that contract. That's going to go to construction this spring. And we are in the process of engaging consultants to essentially examine what we have to do to a tower on Tonchi Mountain. This is important for you, Drew, in terms to improve it so that it can handle some of the county's communication systems. And then we'll be working to site an additional 3 to 4 towers around the county, 2 more in Shandaken, 1 in the Rochester area, and then one in the Marbletown, Rosendale area. So we're working on that. We're doing past studies with that. We're also working on a government operations center. That is basically a brand new, what they call PSTAP, which is a 911 center and an emergency operations center, and combining that with a much more utilitarian government operations center so that the EOC gets used on a regular basis rather than just when there's an emergency. We have completed and moving to adopt a unified planning work program for the Transportation Council. And we have engaged the consultants and had our first kickoff meeting to essentially begin a housing smart communities initiative and website to go along with that. We're working with a web designer out of New Paltz and also Patterns of Progress. So those things are ongoing, and there's a few other things that are in the hopper that we're actively working on. The Midtown Linear Park should be finished hopefully by June. And then we would anticipate that we will let contracts for our Kingston Rail Trail hopefully by spring or early summer. And that runs from Washington Avenue to 209. And we just received word yesterday that we finally have a no significant adverse impact determination with respect to our proposed Veterans Cemetery from the State Historic Preservation Office. And so we'll move to issue a negative declaration with respect to that and put that out to bid, hopefully for a groundbreaking by Memorial Day. So that's where we're at right now. And what I would say to the board members, if you do email me and I don't answer, please CC Marianne on those emails and she'll get my attention. Or do me a really, really big favor, pick up the phone and call me. The COVID-19 essentially modus operandi seems to be just to email everybody and never call. And it is really driving me. It's really driving me crazy. And Mike, you want to mention the work we're trying to do with you with respect to the town hall or not? It's too late now because I mentioned it.
Yeah, no, not yet.
Okay.
I actually have to, I'm going to call you tomorrow. I have to have more conversation with you about that. So.
Okay. All right. So we are working with towns on other things, and we're working at the county to try to smooth the process of the county moving out its ARP funds. So we're sitting in a number of committee meetings to make sure that people understand what's going to happen and what's out there as well. And we have probably, I would say, significantly more applications for the funds than we do have money. So spending $34 million over 2 years is sort of the challenges is picking the right projects, not basically do we have projects.
Dennis, a quick question on that. I know I spoke with Bob Vandenberg today from OSI, who told me that the Accord to Kerhonks and O&W Rail Trail rehab is in front of the legislative ARPA committee this month. Do you know if that's the case?
I'm not aware that it would
Okay.
be, yes, this month being February, the short answer would be yes, this month
Okay.
being February.
Because I didn't see it on the legislative
We would
agenda, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, we would anticipate that we will put that in front of the ARPA committee shortly, and
Okay.
for hopefully a decision in March.
If you let me know
ARPA funds. Yeah, I
when
will.
that is, because I definitely want to attend that legislative
Okay.
meeting to speak in favor of
Yeah.
it. So,
Hey,
thank you.
Absolutely.
Dennis, it's Vince here. Has a site been selected for the new 911 center yet?
No, we were in a site selection process right now. There's about, I would say, 7 sites, and some of them have multiple alternates on it. And we're working with a consulting firm to develop costing for those. And we have a site selection matrix. I would suspect by the middle of this month, if not sooner, we'll have a quote preferred site.
And I'm assuming they're in the city of Kingston, right?
I would suggest that that's not an assumption you should make.
The only reason I assume that is because of where the current center is in proximity to the rest of the,
What I would tell you is that effectively when we look at this, we gave the consultants a distance from basically 299 in New Paltz to 199 in the town of Ulster. So that's where the range of sites that are being looked at.
okay, thank you.
Dennis, you made a comment about 9W going through the town of Ulster. What was that work
Yep.
going to be again?
It is a study at this particular point in time to take a look at the congestion in that area, the safety in that area, et cetera. And we've been working, the supervisor attended the meeting today to narrow down the consultants that we would interview. So
Okay,
we would
great.
anticipate that those interviews will take place next week, pending schedules.
Super, thank you.
All
Hey,
right.
Dennis, can I give a quick update on redistricting?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Robert.
Sure. As you or may not know, I'm working as staff to the county's independent redistricting commission. The website for creating your own districting map is online, but the commission has set a deadline for public creation of maps to February 28th. So I'm going to share a link with you all. So if anybody is industrious, like a certain supervisor on our call here, like Mike, then you have the opportunity to create a map and submit a map for them for their review and for their comments. They're also going to be scheduling probably at least one public hearing at the end of May with the draft map. So they're working on that. And anybody can submit one as well.
Robert, a question on that. So I know people at the last meeting, people said that they had seen that I had shared a map, but I can't find on the site where you can look at other maps that are shared. Is that something only the commission can see?
No, you can, if you start a map, you can, here, I'm not gonna share my screen now, but
No,
if
you can send me a link if you want. I
what you
couldn't
do is
find the other
when you log
versions.
in and you create, what you have to do is you have to log in, create a new plan. And then there's a tab for initial, which is one of the base maps that I created. And there's something called shared.
Right.
And if you went to it, you'd see.
You'd see the other ones?
A couple of commissioners are there now too.
Okay,
created a map.
I'll take a look because I couldn't find that. I have a new version to share of the one I did. I think I've made it better. So,
Yeah, at least there looks like there's at least 15 maps that have been shared up there. So,
okay, thank you.
yep.
Dennis, you got any special topics for tonight?
No, I think I covered them in the update. Thank you.
All right, good. All right, Robert, do we have any public comment out there that you know of?
Well, now's your chance to raise your hand. Also, if you're an applicant, and I know I see one of them out there, and where I knew they were going to give a presentation, we can move them to the front. So
Okay.
I'll go ahead, because I know one is here, and it's Magruder Solar from in town of Shawangum. So I'm gonna.
Okay, do you want to do that one?
If there's no public comment?
Well, yeah. Well, anybody have public comment? Now's your chance. And you can raise your hand in the chat. No. All right. I'm gonna promote Gregory Samillo, who's with the Magruder Solar.
All right, so we're going to go to the referrals now, and you're going to want to bump that one to the top.
Yep.
Okay, so that's for
The chair's permission.
There's permission.
yeah, it's fine with me. So that's with Shawangunk. Is there any recusals?
I have to recuse, Watkins.
Okay, Mark, thanks. All right, Robert, take it away.
Well, I don't know if you wanted to give a presentation on it first or share your screen.
Yeah, hi, this is Greg from Magruder Solar. If I could share my screen.
Sure, I think you should automatically have ability to do that.
All
If
right.
you don't, let me know.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
All right, then let's change that. Sure. All right, you should be good to go.
All right. I just want to confirm, can everyone see the PowerPoint slide up on the screen?
Yes.
All right. I will, yeah, thank you for the opportunity to allow us to present to you tonight. My name is Greg Samillo. I work for a company called CS Energy. We are developing the Magruder Solar Project. I also have a couple of my colleagues who are joining the call tonight. Their names are Matt Tripoli, Andrew Healy, and Eric Millard. So probably during the Q&A, they might be helping with answering any questions. So if it takes a little bit, please be patient as we put some answers together. But as I mentioned, we're presenting the Magruder Solar Project, but I wanted to at least give you just a quick background on who we are as CS Energy. So we're one of the largest solar and EPC and storage EPC contractors in the Northeast, and also a leading installer nationwide. We've installed over 1 gigawatt of projects throughout the US. Just right around when the pandemic kicked off, we opened up a regional office in Albany and have since been hiring a lot of New York residents to work for us. We're also headquartered in New Jersey, and we have a pretty strong construction background, just given how the company was started with their construction roots. And we're starting to become a pretty large company now at over 200 employees across the company, and we've installed probably over 200 or so megawatts of projects, solar projects in New York to date. So very focused and very heavily invested in the state. So our project is Magruder Solar. It's located in the town of Shawangum, right on the county, kind of close to the county line off Route 30 and Plains Road. This is a 5 megawatt AC community solar project. It will connect with Central Hudson's distribution system that is off of Plains Road. It's a 13 volt kV distribution system. So this project will sell discounted electricity to users who are on the Central Hudson system, and they'll be able to subscribe to the project and get discounted electricity and credits to their bill from the project. And we see those amounts equating to almost $2 million over the full life of the project for those credits. And we've committed to providing first priority to residents in the town who are currently Central Hudson customers, and then also to the county and general region for all customers who are on Central Hudson's system. The project will take about 6 months for construction. We'll have about 40 construction jobs associated with that. And then once the project's operating, anticipate property taxes for the project based on the state's recent tax model that they developed for solar projects to be upwards of $500,000 over the life of the project paid to the different taxing jurisdictions for the site. So this is, I'm sure you have the materials, but this is just an overview of the site overall layout. So we have there's an existing rail bed kind of access road that comes off of Route 300 that we intend on utilizing to gain access to the site. And then so that is kind of here on the eastern side of the map. So this is where the access road would be coming into the solar array. And then our interconnection line will run west out of the site to Plains Road. And the line will cross over near the New York City aqueduct that is kind of cutting through right through here. And should also note this is a single axis tracker project. So it's the design where the panels will track the sun as it traverses the sky, become a more efficient use of the project and generation of electricity.
Cool.
So right now, just to give you an update on permits that where we're at. So we are currently going through the seeker and site plan and special use process with the Shawangum Planning Board. We recently had our public hearing for the project that started yesterday or last evening. And then some of the additional permits that we're currently in progress are a freshwater wetlands permit for to support one of our access road going into the site that crosses through a state wetland that we need to improve to get to so that it's 20 feet wide. And then we have to work with the New York City DEP for the electric line that will be crossing the aqueduct. They call these a land use permit. So we've been working on this permit for the past couple of months, and it seems like we're almost at the goal line for getting an offer letter that'll have all the conditions for that permit in order to issue the permit. And then as we get closer to construction, we'll be pursuing the water quality certification with the New York State DEC, as well as the Speedies permit as well. So wanted to give a brief overview of the project, and would be happy to open it up for any questions.
Greg, two major concerns of the staff were with respect to stormwater and grading with respect to it. It looked like and you can go back and I can bring it up myself, but looked like things were some of the houses were built right on the contour, and it looked like there was no grading actually going to occur. Is that the case, or?
So we will be doing some grading across the site that helps to kind of make the project more, installation more efficient, and the project operate more efficiently. So there will be some grading to help with that.
Do you have the plans for that, Greg, or not? Or they're sort of like, we're going to grade, but we're not telling you how, or I guess if that's the concern here.
They should have been in the preliminary plans that we had provided.
Let me bring up mine. Let's see what I can do. So, I mean, these are degrading erosion sediment control plans, but I don't think we have anything that looks current conditions in the contour. So all we have is
here's
post.
here's the question we have. Is that the grading plan, or is that the existing contours? It's hard for us to tell.
That looks like an existing, that's a hill there, Dennis.
Yeah, I know it's pretty steep. It's like 15% grades in places.
Yeah, well, it was an old orchard.
Yeah, I mean, it should show existing and the final. I'm just trying to see what page you're on here.
So I think, Greg, what we're saying is that, laying solar panels, on top of grading, basically becomes very hard to understand what grading you're doing, even if you do. And so the thought would be is to give us the grades, and then give us the and this is what we're probably going to say back to tune, and then give us the change in grade, and then let's go from there and see how much change in grade you're looking at. And then that's I think the key here is we're extremely concerned about solar projects which disturb large areas, and we don't have a decent grading plan on them. And
no, we can do that. We can provide the existing grade and then the final for you.
And of some concern is you did identify the areas up here that are 15% grades, which are up in the corners and down in the corners. And the concern is that what are we doing? Are we? It looks like you're just running the grade from what I can tell, but we really need to. We would suggest that the community really needs to pay some attention, because there's a lot of area that's going to be disturbed here, and with that amount of area being disturbed, then the question is what ends up happening if we start to grade it. And I'd also ask, if you're grading that much area, then is it more than 5 acres, and are you seeking a waiver under DEC regulations?
We are not. I think in our SWIP, we had that broken out that we were going to have blocks of less than 5 acres for the sequencing.
All right. And then what we would say to the community is make sure that if they have blocks of sequencing, then they have to put cover on those blocks before they can start grading the other blocks. And that's generally not what happens in the field.
So if you have the plan, sheet 6 of 17 has the existing and final grades on it.
Okay.
And Dennis, in your comments on that, is that also covering the, just what happens with the stormwater because of the grade?
That's the major concern with respect to the grade,
Right.
and the other concern with respect to the SWIP is to make sure that someone at the community level is actually inspecting to make sure they meet the requirements of the SWIP. Generally, what they do with SWIPs is they file they required the report on them, and then they file the report in a mailbox on the site. And so what we would suggest is they actually file those reports with the community, and the community actually sends somebody out to inspect it.
The other concern we had was, is there any work being done to the bridge, or is it just widening of the road into the buffer area?
So you're referring to the access road that's
Yes.
cutting through? Yeah, so we are going to be putting additional stone to widen that road. That was actually permitted by the DEC several years ago to be a 20-foot wide road, and is since, now it's about 15, I think 15 or 16 feet. So we'll be just working to widen that road to the 20 feet.
But no work on the bridge itself.
No.
So it's not like we're gonna have to go in and strengthen the bridge to get your trucks over it or anything else.
Mm-mm. Yeah, that was something that came up during one of the last meetings. So we're working through that right now with our engineers on how we have to get that permitted.
Any battery backup on site or not?
Related to the solar array?
Yeah, related to the solar array. So sometimes we see them with batteries, sometimes we don't.
No.
Okay.
There is another project that's unrelated to this that will be down the road that is a battery project though.
Yeah. Any conversations with the fire department? Are they okay?
Yeah, my colleague could probably speak to it a little bit better, but we have been engaged with them. They had provided a letter with some of their requests and recommendations. So they had a letter that I think we included it in our latest submission package, but if you don't have it, we can provide that to you.
Hey, Tom, you have a question?
Yeah, I got a few questions. Originally, when they came into the town of Shawangum last year, I was there. I kind of saw the plan. They had the battery, a 10-acre battery, as part of the deal. Now they're saying it's not part of the deal on a parcel just north of this. And that battery connection would hook into the tower line 2 towers further north than where they're presently going. And that tower, they wouldn't have to cross the aqueduct. So if they do the battery power, they'll probably be hooking that tower 2 towers north, which seems kind of strange in a way to me. But the access is coming over the aqueduct there, and I suppose the aqueduct won't allow them to bring in trucks over the aqueduct is the reason they can't access it from Plains Road and going from the rail bed. The other thing is probably the town has already looked at this, but rail bed would be on a different parcel, even though they're all controlled by the same family. Would there have to be an easement in the parcel of the railroads claiming that this?
So that's a comment you're suggesting, Tom, is that we make sure that there's a necessary easement so that the railbed remains. I get it.
Yeah, because otherwise
Yep,
it's
okay.
landlocked if they don't go over the aqueduct to that location. But I mean,
I got you. I'm hearing you.
and if they did the battery power, it would seem wiser to hook into the battery power, then into that tower two towers north, so they wouldn't have to cross the aqueduct with the power line.
No, I think they've made that determination for us.
Okay. No, but I mean, I know the area. Actually, my sister-in-law's family used to own that parcel, so I do know the area pretty good.
Yeah, and we initially intended to connect to the three-phase line or the distribution line that's on Route 300, but after they did our interconnection review, they needed us to connect on off of Plains Road to extend that line up there.
Yeah, Plains Road itself has only single-phase service, but you got the tower line there that is where you're going to be hooking into, not into the.
Yes, so they're extending the three-phase up to that point where we're interconnecting.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
It's about a quarter of a mile. They have to run it then.
Yep.
Then that changes everything with the battery. Okay. All right.
Rob, where'd you go? Rob, you're muted, Rob.
I just realized that.
There we go.
All right,
There you
so
go.
here are my here are the comments. So
Okay.
Consistent with what was presented earlier, we have the all the final approval, all the permits that they had, Army Corps of Engineers, NISA from Access, New York State DEC for freshwater wetlands, I mean, within the 100-foot buffer, and New York City DEP for that land use permit. And then also the SWIP compliance comments that Dennis was talking about earlier with respecting having monitoring on site. And the bridge work.
Well, we're
comment
going to add that. We're going to add that grading issue, right? Rob,
We're going
we
to
had
add
talked
the
about
grading
whether or
issue.
not
We're going to remove that bridge work
Yeah.
comment. That was that I
Remove the
wanted to
bridge
raise
work,
that
yeah.
question at the meeting.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
And Dennis,
And
you're
just-
also
just
going to
sort
add
of work-
Tom's comment about the easement?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Much
Thank
appreciated.
you.
So we'll add that easement comment too. Thank you.
Hey,
I'll make a motion to support.
Just-
that.
Accepted, Conyer?
McLaughlin second.
all right, good. Any further discussion? Okay, all those opposed? And any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Very good. Okay, Rob, you want to go
My
back?
thanks to the applicant's engineer. Appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, Rob, you want to start at the top and with
I
Gardner?
can do that. Let me just stop my share so I don't blind you all as I go all the way to the top.
Or just one quick question.
do
on
we-
that. We did, on the last one, we were voting on both the site plan and special.
And
use.
special permit, correct.
Right, okay.
Rob,
All right.
do we know whether anybody's here for the town of Ulster rather than make them? We have another solar project in the town of Ulster. We
Let's
thought that
find
somebody was
out.
going. Okay.
So I thought we're going to have somebody from the town of Ulster. Ah, there you go. Okay. Okay, you should be able to talk, Mr. Morganti.
So
So I'm
why don't we
actually.
ask, why don't we ask Drew, can we move the town of Ulster? It's another solar project up to in the agenda. So we'll do two at once. We'll do them right in a row.
Yeah, that's good. Good idea. Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
You
so
can go
this-
ahead, Mr. Morganti.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm the applicant's engineer for the Woods Road Solar
Mike?
Project.
Michael, let me interrupt you just real quick second here. Is there any recusals for this one?
What's this guy?
Okay.
Right.
All right, very good. Go ahead, Michael.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Morganti. I am the project engineer for this application that is before the Town of Ulster Planning Board and is also right now before the Ulster County Planning Board. And I can give you a brief overview of the project if you would like.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Sure. So the site's located off of Woods Road in the town of Ulster. It's
I'll bring up
near.
there.
We'll bring up the site plan for you, Michael, so the board can see it.
Yeah.
Sure.
There we go. So theirs is on the aerial. You can all see that.
Do you have a PDF of the plans?
Yeah, we do.
I do.
So that's the area you're looking at right here.
Otherwise, if I was permitted to share my screen, I would be glad to.
Yeah, let me hang
that's-
on.
Yeah, that's easy.
Go right now. You should be able to do that.
Okay.
I'll stop my share first. There we go.
Okay, you can all hear me. Let me share my screen again. I
Correct.
didn't realize- When you put me in as a
Yep.
panelist, I accidentally went, it was muted. Okay, I'm back. I presume you can all see this?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, super. So as you can see here in an overall location map, this is generically where the project site's located. It's in the HC zone within the town of Ulster, which is highway commercial. And in a closer look here, you can see Woods Road, where my mouse is actually moving right now, is to the right. And we're bounded by the New York State Thruway 87 over here, just to the south. And we also have Route 209 just above the site to the north. Existing conditions right now in the site essentially is a bunch of just open woodland. And there are some wetlands, some Army Corps of Engineer wetlands, as you can see here as I zoom in. You can see the wetland flags that were just recently located. We have a bit of an upland area here that's a little over 2 acres in size. And as you follow my mouse this way, I can actually kind of draw a line for you. You will see where the other kind of wetland boundary is over here along our property line. And again, this in here is the area that is upland. So everything between the two red lines essentially is wetland. We do have also a 100-year flood zone located within the site. And the site sits at a much lower elevation than most of the other surrounding commercial buildings. And I believe to the north and the east, there is a residential subdivision, which is shown here in the location map. So you can see where we are in relationship to Magic Drive and Prince Court. So that's just a basic overview of what the existing conditions look like on the site. And what we're looking to do here is propose a 5 megawatt solar farm. It's a very good use for the property. Got a lot of wetlands on it. We're actually permitted to install solar panel arrays in a wetland using a screw type post, which I will show to the board in a few minutes. But essentially what you'll have here is a small pervious gravel road with access off of Woods Road with a fire truck turnaround that's been designed at the end of it. We're really trying to minimize any disturbance to land as it relates to the access road and in general the project itself. So you can see the area here that's bounded by the fence line, and inside this this area here is essentially where the solar panels will be placed. So we are trying to take advantage of the existing contours on the site, and other than the grading that's required for the access road and the turnaround, we are not proposing any grading on the site. We will be cutting trees. We will be stumping. However, we will not be changing any contours. We will not be grading the site other than to return the topsoil conditions and anything really close to the surface back to its original hydrologic conditions and maintaining the existing contours. DEC has put out guidance that discusses how stormwater management should be addressed for solar farm projects. And if you take a look at runoff curve numbers for wooded areas versus areas that have meadows, the runoff curve numbers are very similar. They're almost exactly identical. So the thought process here is that the panels sit off the ground and technically do not create impervious surface. So that hydrologic patterns pre-development versus post-development should be pretty much identical, as long as we're not grading, which is the plan of what we're proposing for this particular project. This is just an erosion and sediment control plan, but I'll go back to this sheet here, and this is just a little bit of a, let me just minimize my panel there. This is what we would be looking to use for installation of the solar arrays in each individual panel. It's basically just a ground screw. And also we will be submitting to the Army Corps of Engineers for a nationwide permit for this particular project. Like I said, we just got the updated wetland boundary, so that application will be submitted very shortly to them. I think, in fact, we submitted the completed joint form application today to our wetland consultant to actually make that submittal to the Army Corps. So that's a generic overview of the project. At this point, I will address any comments or questions from the planning board if you have any.
This is Mitchell Cohen. I just have one question. How many acres of woods is this solar array planning on having cut down?
Yep. So the limits of disturbance is 21.13 acres, as you can see here in the bottom of the plan. I haven't, quite frankly, I've not calculated the full area of the wetlands and subtracted it from that number. But predominantly everything outside the wetland line is wooded, and predominantly everything inside that wetland line is like scrub brush, typical wetlands type vegetation. So I would expect, just looking at the map and approximating it, you're probably looking at somewhere around, I would say, 15 acres or so, maybe woods, maybe 12 to 15 acres, somewhere in that range.
Thank you.
All those trees will be stumped.
The trees will be stumped.
And
It would be a requirement. It can't really leave the stumps in place because they would interfere with the location of the actual solar panels themselves.
I understand that. And you said earlier that there wasn't a significant difference in the water
Runoff.
flow from the hydrological. And I don't see how you could take 15 acres of trees out and not expect an increase in the water flow in that area,
So,
which is already wet to begin with.
correct. What I can do is, if I have a chance while we're in discussion, I can bring up runoff curve numbers, and I can show you the values between woods, and I can show you the value for, now remember, this is a meadow. So we're going to let the grass grow a little bit here. These systems are generally only maintained a few times a year as it relates to grass cutting and that type of maintenance. Someone comes in maybe once in, say, May, June, and comes in once in mid to late fall with a weed whacker, and they kind of just cut down a little bit in between the arrays. But you're going to have tall, long meadow grass, and I'm specifically specifying an Ernst seed mix that grows into a meadow style grass and grows tall. And the purpose for having the meadow grass is to provide a type of vegetation that will, in fact, kind of slow down the flow of the water, so to speak. And the curve number for, I think, a meadow grass is 70. And if I'm not mistaken, the curve number for woods is a 71. So essentially, when you look at the cover type and the runoff that's associated with, there's really no difference. And this is guidance straight from the New York State DEC, which I can provide to the planning board so they can see that for themselves.
So Mitch, a couple of questions. We're going to ask you the same questions, and I appreciate the fact that you've answered them. I'm at some. I've actually walked this site. I'm at some level of concern relative to the fact your ability to essentially to develop a solar facility on here without any grading. I mean, there are literally, if you look at and walking this site, there are literally ATV jumps in here that I don't know how you're going to get over them without grading. But that's here or there. But my sense would be is that if you're telling us you're not going to grade, you're going to somewhere you're going to have to sort of prove it, I guess, because I don't know how anyone's going to get those solar things to drop in and out of those holes that are up there. I'll just leave it at that. The other question I want to ask you is that no one has talked to you about essentially providing access around the site for fire equipment, that you're only going to provide access up to the site and no access around it?
So in our experience has been with multiple different municipalities and dealing with their fire departments is if there's a fire here, especially on the arrays, the fire departments are not going to actually access the arrays. Their only concern is the actual equipment pads and the interconnection points that they want to have access to. So as you can see here, as I zoom in, our fire truck turnaround is located in a spot where we have our equipment pad, our recloser poles. This is what they actually really need access to. And we've been told by multiple fire departments that if the arrays, first of all, the arrays are like a semiconductor silicon. So I don't know how they actually burn or what happens, but they're not going to go into that area and do anything with it. Their concern is
it's not the arrays, it's also fires under the arrays. You know, you got all these grasses and everything else up there. That's the concern. Not necessarily the arrays themselves. It's how do they access back in here if they can't? I'll just leave it at that. And my sense would be is that should come directly from the town of Ulster Fire Company as to whether or not they're comfortable or not comfortable relative to the access provided.
Agreed.
But we've in our discussions, we've generally seen fire companies want access in and around, in or through the array. So we have not seen a SWIP for this as of yet. And given that this is all wooded, we would have some concern about the SWIP. The level of disturbance here is significant. So I'll ask you the same question: more than 5 acres at a time? Are you seeking a waiver?
Yes, we would be seeking a waiver.
Okay. So then we would go back and caution the town that with a waiver in place, they have to essentially establish cover before they can open the next 5 acres up. And that's generally what we've not seen with respect to practices. They generally clear and grub the entire site and then work backwards.
Understood. I mean, that would be a result of, I guess, the town of Ulster making sure that there's enforcement, right? And according to whatever my erosion sediment control plan is. And by the way, there is a SWIP for this, but the SWIP at this point, based on my approach with the development of the project, consists only of an erosion and sediment control plan. And again, that is just that approach that has been provided to the town of Ulster. Unfortunately, I apologize if it's not been provided to you.
And then the other question that we had is that there's an old barn on this site, and my question has to do with SHPO in that barn.
So we,
I mean, it's not shown on the existing conditions. I'm assuming it's still there because it shows up in a 21 air photo, but
so that did show up on the EAF. We are doing an archaeological study.
Okay, we would have some. I mean, that I know it's in bad shape. I've been in it, but it is quite an amazing little barn. Actually, it's not that little, to be honest with you, out there. I'll just leave it at that. There's some it's a Dutch architecture. It's but it's quite a facility out there.
Where is it roughly, did you say?
It's hard for me to tell where it is, but you know, we're having a conversation internally about basically making people that do site plans actually put them over an air photo. It's easy to do, but it's, if you have the existing road going in, there's an existing road at the end of the road that goes in there now. It's probably right off of that. Probably right in the area that you're, probably right in that area where that curve is.
Dennis, Rob had the air photo. If he shared it, we could probably see it.
Yeah, I
Yeah, you can
stop
see
by-
the barn in an air photo.
Yeah, let me
I just don't know
stop by
where it
and
is.
share.
I just
I can
didn't see-
show it to you. Hang on a sec.
That'd be super. That'd be helpful.
So everybody, are you looking, which screen? Do you see the aerial?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, so now you got the barn.
Yeah, it's pretty good size.
I'll have to double check where that is in relationship to, can you zoom out just a little bit so I can get a better look at that? Like from a,
It looks if you go up that, if you go up that road, and it's got to be right by where your pads are and everything else in there.
yeah, it's either there or it's inside the array maybe a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we're right off
Hence-
that little dirt road right there with our pads. So it's probably like kind of in the middle of the arrays.
Hence the recommendation to put site plans on air photos.
I normally know, it's Mr. Chairman, it's funny, I normally do that. I always nowadays include ortho photos. For this project, for some reason, it didn't make it on there
What'd you do to me, Rob? I got Star Wars up here.
No, you don't.
though.
Here's the barn.
There's the barn.
Well, I'm sure it'll be addressed in the archaeological study that we're performing, so we'll see what the results of that report are.
Hey, Dennis, this is
Yeah.
Mitchell Cohen. I'm familiar with this property. I've also walked on this property as I originally was going to purchase that property when I retired. And there were two pieces of property that paralleled each other that the county, apparently there was an issue. But bottom line is, one piece of that land has to connect the side, the side that 209 is, the opposite side, the opposite parcel. There's a connection for the Central Hudson. And right right about where that barn is. Yes.
Yeah, if when you're talking, if you shut your video off, it may help us. I know it sounds weird, but sometimes there's so much,
Okay.
so much bandwidth. You shut your video off and then talk, it may help us.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a right of way in a deed on that land for the Central Hudson to access the power lines. So there should be something on that with the easement for that access from that parcel.
Yeah, my sense is looking at the site. Go ahead, is Mitch, was that Mitch?
No, that was actually Mike
Michael?
Morgan. Mitch, you were cutting in and out of there a little bit, so I didn't get that whole discussion there. What kind of easement is this?
Central Hudson easement, Michael.
Right.
Okay, that's actually shown though on our plan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
we-
going to mention that.
Yeah, we have towers and we have the actual 100-foot wide easement shown on the map, and we're staying well outside of that.
Yeah, they may have an access easement across the property to access the towers. That's what he was bringing up. And we don't know where that is, and I don't know where that is, and maybe we just confirm that it's not there and they're going to access it some
And
other way.
they gain access through the Johnson property. If you take a look at the map.
Okay.
I think you can see it right here.
Yeah.
Can you annotate that, Rob?
They gain access from the west where the Johnson property is. He's zooming in on it right now.
Yeah, you can, do you
Okay.
see the line, or do you want me to annotate that? I think it's,
I could prefer you to annotate it. I see the easement though. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
And so the other question is what's the life expectancy on this project?
So, I mean, solar panels in general seem to have a life expectancy of around 25 years. And we have a decommissioning plan in place for this particular project, which has already been submitted to the town of Ulster for their review. But 25 years would be the answer to that question.
Thank you.
So,
Mike or Scott, you've had your hands raised for a while. Do you have any questions?
Oh, actually, Mike, if you don't mind, I'll start.
Yeah,
Actually,
go ahead.
thank you. Dennis touched on a couple of things first that I was concerned with, and that was actually how the fire truck's going to get through there, and the grass that could dry out in the fall, go on fire and keep it from the houses that were on the other side, and to protect that area. That's number one. Number two was, you mentioned about digging, and all I see is all these arrays, but they're going to be connected somehow, and that seems to be a fair amount of site work that needs to be done in order to connect all of those arrays together. So I guess my question would be is I couldn't see how, or maybe you could tell us how would it get mounted? Conduits have to be in the ground, or are they going to be mounted above somehow on stanchions? I don't know. You tell us.
Well, so yeah, let me be clear. I'm not saying there's not going to be soil disturbance, right? I mean, there's going to be soil disturbance. What I'm saying to you is that we're not changing the hydrology. We're not going to grade. If we have stumping that occurs and there is a small hole in the ground, so to speak, that is going to be quote unquote like graded, but graded back to the original contour elevations. You follow what I'm saying to you? So we're not going to be changing the slopes of the land. We will be the soil disturbance, which is why we have an erosion sediment control plan, and we'll be filing for a notice of intent for stormwater inspections because we cross those thresholds as it relates to that. But in terms of changing the contours of the land, we're not going to do that. We're not looking to do that. If there is any disturbance for the installation of a trench, we're going to restore that surface contour back to its original elevations.
Okay.
so Michael, what does this look like from the subdivision that seems to be right next to it? What are those people going to see relative to this array?
Yeah, so if we can go back to that aerial, that would probably be helpful. And then we can take a look at the contours.
I can tell you that it's pretty burned up and that there's a rise there.
Yeah, it sits in a very,
go right to
very
aerial.
low. It sits in a very low area, which actually makes it a very good location. I mean, the people on was that Magic Lane or something will have to make a concerted effort to really want to see this. We are keeping a, let me just double check the site plan. So, I mean, there's going to probably be at least between the fence line and the actual property line on that side that faces Magic Lane, you're probably looking at well over 100 or 200 foot wooded buffer, somewhere in that range. And again, this sits at a much lower elevation. I don't have.
I can probably show you what it looks like real quick. Sorry. Okay. So you got some outcrops. You got so pretty heavily wooded in there, but there may be some seasonal views.
Okay, all right.
That's a fairly recent photo, I think.
You want to go to your recommendations, Rob?
Sure, I'd love to. Wait, we got a couple. Amanda, you have comments?
Well, I just had a question about if you can go back to the site plan where I think it shows the 100-year flood line.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a little stream going through there, right? So, I mean, it seems like it goes, it's kind of hard to tell, but does it kind of go through the middle of this property?
Let me go back to aerial for you, but a lot of the property is in floodplain.
Yes.
So is there any
They are gonna
concern
need
how,
and they're aware they're gonna need a floodplain permit to go along with this.
Correct.
But wait till this. Okay. There you go. So the blue is the 100-year. That's not delineated, but roughly.
Okay.
oh, there you go. Okay. Yeah. The blue's 100-year and the yellow is
500.
what?
500.
500. Okay, well, you know, the predictions are these things become more and more common, so just,
You know, they locate these things in floodplains now, as the people in the Warsing will tell us.
We have floodplains and wetlands.
lovely. Okay.
So let me go to our comments if there are no other questions. A lot of them have already been stated, but I'll just refresh here.
Hey, Rob.
Yes.
Oh, you, never mind, your, the fire district's on the list of recommendations. You're right.
It's on the list. It's on
Yep.
the list. So I didn't make this comment about the Shawangum proposal, which we saw, and I should have complimented them on this. They had wildlife friendly fencing. They had a management plan for wildlife, and they had landscaping that would set back from the property. This project is built pretty much to the property boundaries. I don't have a fencing detail. I know that a lot of what we're seeing is to the west, to the south and of the property is Camper Barn, and we have 209. We have the throughway, but we do have the residences, which may have some seasonal views. So they may want to look at some fencing detail, also provide for wildlife friendly fencing around the property.
If I could interrupt for 1 second, there's a
Sure.
fencing detail on sheet 6 of the plans at the bottom.
Okay. Is it wildlife friendly fencing?
I wouldn't say that. It's a chain link.
Okay,
fence
well,
detail.
well, there's that's the comment, really.
Okay.
Okay, so our visual concerns are with respect to the residences that are nearby, and we know they're probably only seasonal given the difference in terrain. Just noting that the floodplain permit will be needed. Again, mentioning SHPO and doing the archaeological. And it was mentioned our staff meeting say that Jockey Hill Road, that whole road in there was one of the original connections that went across the thruway. So there may be some definitely some maybe some archaeological interest in that area. Just doing a endangered species or wildlife management plan analysis with respect to it. The Army Corps permits, as Dennis brought up, monitoring stormwater during construction, and the fire district comment. Do we still want to re-refer a comment in there?
Yep, good.
This we still are request. We don't have the SWIP yet, so I'll lose Dennis.
Robert, this is Mitchell Cohen again. Just one other
Sure.
thing. That location, if you put a solar array, has anybody done a safety evaluation on the glare from the sun onto 87 when you drive by that location?
We have not, but it sits at such a lower elevation. It's
Pretty steep. It's pretty high up there. It's a mountainside. You have a beautiful view up in that location.
I mean, if I'm looking at the elevations along 209, we're talking about 230
No,
versus
87. If you're going on 87, it's one of the major things you see because the U.S. flag that flies over Camper World is right in front of that mountainside.
Okay, so that I'll have to take a look at what the elevations are over there and see if that if there's any impact. I'm trying to right now. So yeah, I see what you're saying.
Is Mr. Granziano in on a member of the project with you? Because he's raising his hand.
He is.
Okay, I'll let him talk. He has his hand raised. You can go ahead.
You guys hear me?
Yes.
Hey, this is Daniel Graziano. I'm part of the project with Mike. I'm actually one of the applicants. The panels that we use for the solar farms are non-reflective panels. So there really shouldn't be any glare at all towards the highway.
Okay. Thanks.
to Mitchell's comment is the question on view shed may end up being from perhaps getting a view shed from the throughway, rather than worrying about the seasonal residents, the views, because the question then becomes, what are the views on a regular basis from the throughway itself?
Yeah,
And
good
the
idea.
community should know that. I don't see that as something that's
Okay, so we'll look
a
at
big
views there
problem
as
with the
well.
project, but the community should understand what those views are from the
Okay.
throughway, particularly those on and off ramps.
So the comment will be,
Regardless, it needs to be looked at.
the comments can be visual analysis of the property.
Which we can pretty much just even we could even put a profile or a section through the property to show that, which is what I've done before in other projects.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And
Any
we
other
are doing a
comments?
re-referral, right? We are doing a re-referral?
It's still there, Mark.
Right, I mean, if they're gonna do
so
a
I'm
visual
gonna make the
analysis and they
motion.
haven't done the SWIP for us, we'd like to see it again.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna make the motion to support staff with the re-referral.
Conyer, I'll second it.
I have a question. Would this have to be referred to the Thruway Authority for action?
I think the visual analysis should be from the throughway. I don't know if we have to go to the throughway authority for it.
They don't have any permits, so the short answer would be no.
Exactly.
Who is the second on that, by the way? I apologize.
It was John Conyer.
Were
Thank you,
they
Mr. Coney.
identified, was the throughway identified as an interested party? As an interested party?
I'm sorry, was that?
I don't have any answer.
No.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on it? All right, all those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion passes. We can move on.
We have Almquist down. You have Almquist down as a recusal on that one.
Yes, we know.
Yes, thank you, Frank. I put you down.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna take us back to the top.
Okay, back to Gardner. Any recusals for Gardner? All right, Rob, it's all yours.
All right, let me share my screen one more time. All right, Town of Gardner. So I'm gonna kind of probably do the first two at the same time.
Okay.
Because they relate very strongly to each other. So we saw a 6-month kennel moratorium in the past. We had reviewed their previous kennel law. We thought it was okay. We had no county impact on it. The town of Gardner went back and decided they wanted a much more detailed and robust law with respect to kennel laws. So they've been working on that. And what we're seeing also tonight is that law. So, but in the interim, they're going to be the moratorium runs out on the 11th. They're having a hearing on the new law on the 8th. So they just want to cover their bases by keeping the moratorium intact. When they've passed a new law, they'll repeal the moratorium. So there's no county impact on the moratorium.
Rob, a question. Are they defining kennel? Are they excluding veterinary practices out of kennel, or is it?
It's not included. I'll get to that when we go to the kennel law, but it's not
Okay,
included.
sorry.
I didn't see it included in there.
Okay.
Motion McCarthy.
Second, Mike Baden.
Okay, any further discussion on the no county impact? All those opposed?
McLaughlin.
Okay. Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. All right,
All right.
Robert, we can do the second one now.
Sure.
Gardner, again, any recusals?
Nope.
Okay.
So this is the kennel law. That's the second draft of what we've seen. And so by providing this at the same time they did moratorium, they're showing they've made substantial progress, which is why the moratorium was no county impact. So changes from what we saw when we no county impacted the last time. They increased the intent. They reference in New York State law, which is the Puppy Protection Act of 2021. They also ban puppy mills townwide. And there's they changed the term breeder to dealer. There's no actual change there. And they added another type of kennel, which they had the commercial kennel, which was, I believe, 10 or more. And then they had a home, kind of like private, which was 5 or less. And now they have a kind of like an in-between, which is mixed. So it's a previous not commercial, non-commercial. Still need a license. What they really did is they increased the standards that are there. And they all really just focus on the care of animals, how much space, how they'll be fed, what kind of dietary restrictions they have, just a lot of details with respect to that. So it was a learning experience. No kind of impact on it, but a lot of towns who are interested in making more robust kennel laws should check this out. So no kind of impact on this.
Motion McCarthy.
Second, Mike Baden.
All right. Any further discussion? All those opposed? And any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Okay. Okay, on to Town of Lloyd. Are there any recusals for Town of Lloyd?
This was before the planning board, right, Scott?
Yes.
Okay, so probably should.
All
So
right,
we
well-
review this as a site plan, and it was a no K impact, and I'll just remind everybody about it real quick. So this is a solar facility. It's in Clindale off South Road, and what they're doing to the project is basically enclosing the square. They're taking off an end, removing older buildings and enclosing it, and I could annotate it a lot, but so basically making a box out of it. What they're gonna, the result is there's different encroachments with respect to minimum. There's a whole bunch of different encroachments now. Some are reduced, some are increased. They also need a parking variance because this whole parking area is going away. There's also a new loading dock, which is going to encroach. It's a 5-bay loading dock, which goes out this way. So our only real concern, given that there's no change in really of the footprint of the area itself and of the disturbance, but we do have the Black Creek, which lies back here. And we do notice that there is an expansion of the building. There may be more opportunities. So what we want to do is make sure there's a buffer and that there's special care with respect to stormwater as they consider the variance here. There's no rear yard variance associated with it. The variances are side yard. Let me go back to my other screen real quick. We got side yard, total side yard, building coverage, and that's where this comes into play. It already had 30%, 31, basically 31% coverage. It's going up to about just under 42. It already, and also the existing building had 70.47 lot coverage max. The lot was covered that way. It's actually reducing it very minutely. And then they have some parking changes. It's only 8 spots though that are being changed.
So we're gonna include the planning board in that as well, right, Rob?
That's correct. With respect to just noting the building coverage max, the amount of building coverage with respect to any impacts that are associated with the Black Creek.
So what are your recommendations then, Rob?
That was it.
Okay.
You don't have? You're on the wrong page there, Rob. There you go. Got a
I don't
page
think
you
we
need to-
actually put them in. This is something that came up in discussion first. That's why, Dan.
Okay, thank you.
And that's what the building's gonna look like. I think
So it's
Amanda,
just a
do you have
comment back
question,
to him
Amanda?
that
I was just wondering if we could recommend they consider solar panels on that nice big flat roof.
That was site plan. We're doing area variance.
yeah, unfortunately, we're engaged in area variances.
Sorry.
All right.
It's
Somebody wanna
okay.
make
It's a good comment.
Somebody want to make a motion to support the comments?
So
Wilkin,
moved, McLaughlin.
Second, Vivian.
Okay. All right. All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Very good. All right, we're on to Marbletown next. Any recusals on Marbletown?
Hanson recusing.
All right, thank you, Harry. Okay, Rob.
All right, so we reviewed this a couple months ago back in December. And we asked for a re-referral, and this is that re-referral. Do I have the aerial for it? No. But that's all right. We don't need it. So this was a lodging facility. So I'll refresh your memory a little bit. So this is what we originally received from the town, from the applicant. And what we've gone back in 2 months, they made considerable progress. What it seemed like when we received it is that they were aware that there were a lot of issues that they had to address, but it did get referred, and now it's back to us, and they've addressed a lot of those concerns, from internal access, lighting, building architecture, parking space locations, and as well as sizing. Although I don't see ADA accessible parking marked out, so that actually will add that as a comment. But we do have some landscaping, but we don't have a full landscaping plan. And there were some comments that they addressed a lot of the wetland floodplain issues from last time. I'll just go through it. Lighting levels are a little bit high. We'd like them to meet IES international dark sky standards. I think they're an average of over 5, if I recall. But they were a little on the high, or over 3. So they should be probably about under 2.5. So that's what it's. So you got 2, and they also split into 3 buildings. So 2 different rooms of 10, and it's a barn style, as they said it was going to be. Those are the hotel rooms. So comments were lighting level, previous comment for NISDOT access permits. They are aware that they need to complete an archaeological phase 1A, B, which we made a comment on last time. That's still in progress, so we have that comment there. Detailed landscaping plan. It did come up in their own comments from their own that they are recognized that they should maintain the existing vegetation that's along the frontage. We should have a note on the plan that that's to be maintained. Final approval from the health department for septic. I don't know that we made this comment last time, or maybe we did, but the sustainability comment with respect to low impact design as they develop the site. They are using LED fixtures and looks at alternative fuel sources or energy sources for the building, as well
Energy
as
management, basically. Yeah.
Energy management. Also, given that's a hotel, they should look into the possibility of EV charging stations. Also, that barn, that's the main building, they say it can hold up to 200, so they are going to have events on the property. They may want to file an event management plan, particularly with respect to traffic flow for any large scale events that they have. And also, final SWIP needs to be submitted to a stormwater review.
Can we, advance here, can we add a comment that they have to register with the county Department of Finance since it's short-term rental?
It's not a short-term rental, it's an inn.
Well, still,
They still have to register.
They have to register.
Yeah, they still have to register.
Most hotels
Yeah.
are recognized to have to register
Yeah.
for the bed tax.
It just, maybe we can
It's the law.
put a comment in there.
We're fine with that comment, then.
Yeah,
That's not a problem.
Rob, it's Mike Baden. With so many things sort of missing, should we be asking for a re-referral? I mean, there's a lot of things that we're saying they need to provide the local planning board, and
right,
that's items that we should be seeing.
Yeah, we can. We re-referred it once. They're aware that these are things that they have to complete. We could ask for it again, because we have not seen them.
Yeah, and it's more significant than just like a health department permit, which we always have, but it's a lot of these are studies and
Mhm.
to me, it rises to county level.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we refer. Anyone else?
Right.
That's it.
Motion to
Mike
support
Bain, I'll
staff.
make the motion.
Second, Conyer.
Vivian? Well,
Yes.
Vivian had a comment.
Okay.
No, I was making motion.
Oh,
Ah.
thank you.
All right. So
Mike,
we
you're
have a
the
motion.
second then.
That's fine.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, I think. Any further discussion? Okay. All those opposed? And any abstentions? All right, very good. Motion passes. Okay, Robert, next one is again Marbletown. Any abstention? Oh, that's the same.
Oh,
one.
those were
Sorry.
both done together.
Yep.
They should have been
Sorry.
anyway.
Wasn't paying attention there. All right, the next one's Town of Saugerties. Any abstentions on this one?
Accused. No,
No.
we don't have a representative from Town of
All right.
Saugerties anymore.
Oh, okay. All right, Robert.
So this is a single family home that requires site plan review because it's in a waterfront overlay or WFO zoning district. No county impact on a single family home.
Motion to support McLaughlin.
Conyer, second.
All right. Anybody, any further discussion? All those opposed? And any abstentions? Very good, passes. Okay. Right along here. It looks like we got 3 local laws with the town of Schwangunk. For these 3, is there anybody that needs to recuse themselves?
Watkins.
Okay.
Okay, Mark, thanks. Okay, Robert.
All right. Okay, so we have 3 local laws. They're all zoning amendments. I'm going to handle them separately. Not going to do anything at once because they're all unique and different. Okay, first one, local law number 1 is a lot line adjustment law, and it deals with lot line adjustments and natural subdivisions. And basically what it does, it takes standards, puts them in the zoning statute that separate from the subdivision statute, that allows the planning board to review these actions based as if they can meet certain criteria, and gives them the option to waive a public hearing and doesn't require them to go through the whole subdivision process. Our one comment with respect to this is it says in the statute, the proposal, that the planning board may require county health department approval at their discretion. I think that if they're modifying something that gets up to a certain threshold, if it has to be approved, if it's a subdivision and it's an amendment to a subdivision, it probably should be looked at no matter what by the health department.
So Rob, I got a question. Do they have a separate subdivision code?
Yes, they do. They have a subdivision of land, but this is a zoning statute amendment that deals with lot line adjustments and natural subdivisions.
So do you
So
know
basically,
whether
the goal is to expedite it.
It's similar, I believe, Drew, it's similar to the way Rochester did theirs, in that we separated it out. It gives the planning board certification powers, not approval powers.
Okay, but I was just wondering if the subdivision code needed to be changed to essentially eliminate lot line adjustment out of the subdivision code.
Oh, good point, Drew. In other words, the laws would be inconsistent.
It depends if they have it in their code or not, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's
they
essentially what
may
I'm
be.
asking.
And that's an advice. We could certainly advise them on that.
I don't
Yeah.
believe they were, but we can make that advisory.
Yeah, I get what he's saying.
Right, and
And just so everybody, just,
Go on,
if I
Dennis.
may, Rob, just so everybody
Yeah.
understands, the reason for referral to the health department is if it's a platted subdivision and filed, and it has a health department signature on it, what you don't want to have happen is an amendment to that, a lot line within that, and not have a recertification by the health department. Then you would end up with essentially a plan that wasn't certified being essentially deemed buildable, when in point of fact, the health department never looked at or approved the modification. That's
So
why
the way-
that's why that
yeah.
comment,
So the way to want to put
that's why
it
that
is,
comment's in there.
but if you want to say if it's so, as a comment back directly would be, if it's certified by the health department, it should go to her to sell health.
That's right.
department review.
Right.
That's the way we're gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah, because not
That's
every
all.
lot
Yeah.
is certified by the
Right,
health
right.
department.
That's
but if it
correct.
was,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's just a rewording of what they have in there, not really too dramatic.
A planning board cannot approve a non-buildable lot.
Right.
No, but what you have here is essentially that a health department has approved a series of lots. Their signature is on the subdivision plat that was filed with the clerk. And through an amendment process, which essentially doesn't require those changes to those lot lines go back to them, then their approval is, you can't cut them out of that change. You don't know whether they would grant that approval or not. That's the point.
Still can't make a non-conforming lot. So if
Yeah,
they've got
the
an
lots
approval,
could be completely conforming. They could be completely conforming, but for example, the lot line moves the potential to site a well closer than 200 feet from a septic system, when the other lot lines didn't. You move a lot line that had a reserve area for a septic system, and you don't, and now it's not there. So you need them to
non-conforming lot then.
recertify.
it's a non-conforming lot then. You're not doing that.
Well,
Not about that.
No, but
that's not-
Dennis's point is if there's a filed map in a subdivision plat, that filed map is signed. So when the lot lines are changed on two lots, then that subdivision map that's been filed becomes invalid. So that's the point. It's more a paperwork issue and a filing issue than an actual, whether it's a conforming or non-conforming issue.
Thank you.
I have a question. Applicant has filing deadlines of 90 days and 62 days. What does that mean?
That's
Well, on a
Filing with the
subdivision plat,
county.
yeah, on a subdivision plat, if you don't file within the 62 days after getting your final approval at the town level, you have to start the process over. And we've had that happen.
So this is making a lot line adjustment after the lot has been set in the subdivision?
Yeah, it would be applicable here because what Mike is telling, what's happening here is that they're not approving a subdivision. They're basically authorizing a lot line change. It's a splitting hairs, but I know why they're doing it. The short answer is that they wouldn't be under the same gun that I could see to file it.
So what happens after the 90 days?
Well, I'm not sure the 90-day number where it's coming from, Vivian. The only one that I'm aware of is 62.
You're right.
Yeah, and Dennis, that actually is a comment that the 90 days, I don't think that they can override. State law says 62 days from signature by the planning board chair. It must be filed with the county in order to be, the county won't accept it after 62 days. They'll kick it back and say you have to go back for reapproval. So the 90 days maybe was
another
put in there
comment.
to relax it, but I think it has to follow state law of 62 days. It's not a matter of if it's a lot line adjustment, it's the filing of any map involving a change in boundaries is 62 days by state law.
So we'll make that comment as well.
I see two people with hands raised. So Amanda.
Is there?
Thanks, Vivian.
Is there a definition? Is there a definition of natural subdivision?
There is
Yes.
one in there. Yes.
It is?
Yes,
Okay.
they have, within their zoning statute, there is a definition of a subdivision.
Natural
Of
subdivision.
a natural subdivision.
Oh, a natural subdivision.
Yes, sir.
They're generally considered, natural subdivisions are generally considered when lots cross roads. And when they cross town boundaries.
Well, it
I
might
don't know
be
what-
helpful to
I don't know
just
whether there's one in the
specify.
zoning statute, but that's generally how they're considered.
What we found in some of our projects is if they aren't really well defined, everybody comes up with their own definition and gets to argue about it, so.
Would a stream be a natural subdivision?
Hold on.
It depends on how they define it. So some define it by a physical feature like a stream or things like that as well. They should define it in their code, what they're going to consider to be a natural subdivision if they haven't already.
Oh, they have it right in this law. So they define as a lot or parcel of land appearing of record or according to the tax map as a single lot, which is divided by a right of way for an improved and publicly maintained public street or highway, existing or former rail right of way owned
Perfect.
by other than the owners, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. et cetera.
There you
It's
go.
already lined.
They have a
Yeah.
definition.
So it's a
Good.
Yeah, it's good. Thanks, Amanda, for that. Recommendations, Rob?
well, the two that just came up, well, we had the health department comment. And we had the 62-day comment. Those are the two, and those are required mods, I believe.
I have one question
Sure.
on that lot line adjustment. Back about 10 years ago, Plattekill, we had a lot line adjustment and it came, we were, the planning board filed to the ZBA for some clarification on it and was sent to the county. At that time, the county argued that, the county made comments back to the section that sets up the planning board as oversight on subdivisions that had taken place since the start of zoning law, but any two lots, but according to that, two lots that were pre-existing before zoning and had never been subdivided before zoning could do a lot line without planning board oversight. Does this overrule that or not? You know, say something from back in the 60s or 50s, two lots.
Tom, the short answer on that is if the zoning statute says that any change of lot line requires planning board approval, then you can. It doesn't matter if it's predates it. If anything moving forward, any change of lot line, Rochester went through that and that's how we handled it. It's done by home rule. It's stated in the beginning of the zoning
All right,
law.
so if it isn't stated in the zoning law, well, so this is making that stated that if you have two lots that have been there for 75, 80 years, they would still have to come in for planning board approval now?
If your law states it, if it states that anything moving forward, that any change of boundary line requires planning board, in this case, I didn't read the statute, so, but my guess is what they're doing is they're stating it's not a subdivision. They're certifying that it meets the standards of subdivision, that the resulting lots will meet the standards. And there also is, application includes show they meet the standards. And they also talk about that the piece that they're creating cannot be a standalone lot. So as long as they've given themselves the power to do this, that overrules what you're talking about.
And the other thing on the natural subdivision, I can understand it. Well, they can have all, they put it in their definition, but Plattekill didn't really see natural subdivision, but we did a subdivision and there was a swamp across the road, and I made sure that it was mentioned that that swamp across the road was part of the initial or the remaining lands after the subdivision, because you didn't want someone to come in with a natural subdivision then and say that ground across the road is a separate lot because it was non-buildable since it was all swamp. That's the concern I have when we come into natural subdivisions.
Yeah, we get it.
Okay.
So Rob, you got recommendations here? The two that we have, which is essentially, I don't want to go back to the health department in the 90 days versus 62 days.
Yes, that's it.
I think that's it. Yep.
Mike Baden, I'll make the motion.
Second it, McLaughlin.
All right. Any further discussion on this one? All those opposed? And any abstentions? All right, motion passes. On to the next local law for Shawangunk. You're going to stay, you're going to, Mark, you're going to recuse also on this one also?
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
Yes. All three.
okay, thank you.
All right.
Okay, Rob.
Town of Shawangunk is proposing a accessory dwelling unit law, and they've repealed, as part of repealing their existing law, repealing where it appears in the use table and putting in a whole new law as part of effort to provide for additional opportunities for housing and to streamline the procedures and requirements and also encourage the use. So compliment the town on going forward with that. So let me go a bit too far. So eligibility is, so if you're an existing single family home, an existing detached single family home, I should say, it's allowed in all districts where single family dwellings are allowed, allows one per lot if existing, or if the lot is a conforming use and complies with both requirements, which is residential use. And then the land or the primary residence must be occupied at the time of application as well. And the primary resident, they could be in the accessory building living there or in the primary building too. There's also there's also eligibility for an attached or detached accessory dwelling. So that's a constructed addition to the building or a separate or converted accessory structure. So they're allowed from that as well. And they have certain standards which are pretty common for all the ADUs that we've been seeing. Department of Health approvals, water quality tests, meets fire prevention codes. If it's in a basement or an attic, it has to meet the fire codes and building codes. One typical response we're seeing is the one parking spot per unit.
Is that additional, Rob, or is that they would have to meet the?
It's additional parking. It's for the
guy already got 3. Does he need another one? That's my question.
I'd have to go back.
He meets the requirements of the ordinance, then he should be allowed to go. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I'll double check that one.
'Cause usually parking requirements are based on dwelling units. So if it's 1.5 or 2 per dwelling unit, then that's what they're requiring. If there's 2 dwelling units, it's 2 lots.
Got it.
I get it. Okay.
Okay. Maximum size 650 square feet. I mentioned that. Of course, they have to have separate facilities, kitchens for those units. They're permitted in a cluster subdivision, but not as a detached accessory structure. They have to be
Not in a. Yeah, okay.
They're not in a detached structure. They have to be attached or within the structure. And ADUs are not permitted by right in those cluster subdivision cases. Elsewhere they are. So comments with respect to that is that we would encourage the town to increase some flexibility there with respect to it, especially with clusters, that permitting them by right is, and doing it administratively is a good way to go. I mean, we have the city of Kingston and more urban areas where we have clusters of higher density and are allowed as of right. So similarly, we should recommend that they go forward there. Short-term rentals, recommend that these be, since the town is encouraging these as an accessory use to increase their housing stock as an affordable alternative, they should prohibit them from being used for short-term rentals, or new construction at the least. And also, this is a comment that we've made on other ones with the administrative. It's basically they should be administratively reviewed by the CEO, permitted by as of right. If there's a site design issue, say there's something that's unique with respect to the way they've expanded the structure, it's up to ZO's determination whether they should go to the planning board for review. There is a special permit standard in the law for that right now, and they could do site plan instead to be a little less stringent and not necessarily always require a public hearing for these types of units.
Motion to support
And-
staff comments.
Conyers, second.
I have a question. So you had said to prohibit use as short-term rentals for new construction, or is this accessory dwelling law for new accessory dwellings? I just wanted to clarify that.
Well, it kind of grandfathers what's there in, and also for new ones as well.
So I think maybe it should be amended to say as short-term rentals that are not pre-existing or
Well,
something.
that's what I said.
That's
Oh,
what,
okay.
yeah, that's what we mean, Vivian.
That's what
That's
I,
what we
I
mean.
did say
So
that.
that's going to be in that wording?
Yeah,
Okay,
new construction, basically, they would
New
not be,
construction,
not be
New
used.
additions, new,
Who seconded that motion, by the way? I'm sorry.
Conyer.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Conyer.
okay, because
Okay.
the way it looks, when I just see it on the screen, it just seems that they would close down existing short-term rentals if that was. the
No,
way-
I said specifically that they should,
Okay,
I elaborate on it.
That-
good.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion?
Dennis, just a comment, not specifically about this application. Yesterday, the Association of Towns did a webinar on the governor's budget. And apparently in the governor's budget, she's included something involving accessory dwellings, which removes municipalities' ability to say things like size and parking and setbacks.
Right, and actually, we were gonna make
This
a
is-
comment about that this may be
Okay.
subject and superseded as an advisory comment, that
Yeah,
something may
that's,
be
we're
coming down.
gonna
the
add
road.
that with the individual's permission, that motion, for the motion, we'd add that it's advisory. That effectively, that the state is considering this, and, but
Yeah,
I don't want to stop the town of Shawangum from essentially liberalizing its ADU, and we want to thank.
No,
you
no,
for
no,
doing
no. I
that.
just want to make
Yeah.
sure you were.
So I don't want them to say, oh, well, if the state's gonna preempt us, why should we bother? I don't
No,
want
no,
that
no,
to
no.
happen.
I want to make sure you were aware because I was a little
Yep,
shocked at
yep.
what I heard yesterday. I had
Yep.
not heard it before, so.
Yeah, we were gonna make that as an advisory comment, I forgot.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. All right, any further discussion then, other than Mike's? Okay, all those opposed? And any recusals or any abstentions, I mean? All right, motion passes. All right, Rob, the next local law, number 3.
All right, now the town is addressing its short-term rental issues. So town of Shawangum is taking care of a lot of issues here. So very similar to a lot of the other laws we have in the town, the county allows it in single family or accessory buildings, no more than 14 consecutive days as opposed to usual 30 or less days. So just a difference. They're treating as an accessory use. I know there's been some questions about which, I think it was Drew, you asked me about
Yeah, I
which
did.
ways different municipalities are doing it. Most are treating them as an accessory use. Some are bringing it out as a commercial use in their use tables, but they're treating as an accessory use in those zone districts. They're treated by site plan review unless certain criteria that they have raises it to a special permit, and we'll get into that later. Owner occupancy is not strictly required, but I'll get into that as well, because where that comes in is they're going to allow them as accessory to a commercial or agricultural use. So in those cases, you might not have owner occupancy on that property. Okay, so let's see. A little confusion here is any one property owner is permitted to own one B&B / short-term rental. And some confusion, we would like to some clarification on that. Is that a town property owner? The way it's written is a property owner. So we'd like some clarification on that. Let's see. So let's see. Oh, this is the special permit, but didn't get pulled out. So a special permit deal with not accessory and within a single family structure. So it's sorry. So it's special.
What's the confusion, Rob? I'm sorry, I thought you were confused. I don't understand.
I am
These are
confused
pretty
about
strict.
what I have here, but so they must have direct access to a public road, no non-permanent structures. Let's see, and these are the standards with the special permit where it raises to that. So it's not if it's not owner occupied, it would get a special permit. It's an accessory to a commercial or agricultural use. And if it's not accessory or within a single family structure. So those are certain standards that require a special permit. They have license standards and renewals. They have a good neighbor packet, which is similar to what the town of Gardner has. The town is reserving the right to cap the total number of permits, regardless of whether they're owner occupied or non-owner occupied, but they haven't stated what that cap is. Then also there is a great 90-day grace provision for existing B&B SDRs to apply for a license. And of course, they also reference the county registration. Comments. There is no specific prohibition while there's no specific prohibition on multifamily, but at the same time, there's nothing in there that says they can be allowed there. So we just maybe would like to see something that explicitly states these are not allowed in multifamily, three family or more, or multifamily complexes. They should be. So there's no ambiguity with that. Just a little bit on defining owner occupied. But what we'd like to see is we tend to prefer the primary residence is what we tend to like to see. This owner occupied.
And that's okay. They listed as primary owner, so we're basically saying primary residence, and
I think
it's
it
okay if
actually
they
is
want to
owner
leave that.
occupied.
But the point being is they should define something, what that means. It's not in a definition.
No, it's not. So
And
we
then
want to.
Yeah. And then the clarifications.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Rob.
Sorry, then clarification with respect to that ownership, which I mentioned above. And they're only allowed one per lot with respect to the single family, but if the commercial and the agriculture, make sure they're only limited one per lot as well. And just the ownership comment that I made above.
Okay. And then the other thing is we want to congratulate the town for I mean, we have some disagreements perhaps with in terms of how some of the structure here, but this is a huge leap for the town of Shawangunk, and we want to congratulate them on that.
Rob, could you go back to the previous screen? I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Okay, so the fourth line down, not accessory and within a single family dwelling. Do you think that should be or within a single family dwelling? Or I'm not clear what that means. Is that if it's not an accessory unit and it's not, or an accessory unit that is within a single family dwelling would need a special use permit? I don't understand the word.
I have to go back to that because I think I miswrote it. That's why it was throwing me a little bit too. But I can.
So these are conditions for the special permit. Is that what you're saying, Rob?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can go right to it. Let's just may as well. Special permit, accessory
Right.
to and incorporated within a single family detached dwelling. If that
So it
helps.
is not, okay, it is not.
That's right, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, but if it's not within the dwelling, then it does need a special permit?
Special
or-
permit shall,
Okay, it's not, if it's accessory to a single family dwelling, but not incorporated within it, it still doesn't require a special use permit?
So
yeah,
the short answer to your question is this is a negative.
Yeah.
So obviously, ones that are accessory to and incorporated with a single family detached dwelling or accessory commercial use do not require a special permit. And obviously, if you own the lot and you're occupying the lot, you don't require a special permit, which leads me to think that the way this would read in the positive would be if we're going to require special permits, you would require them, for example, if you're putting them in outside of the single family unit. So for example, if it was in a garage, you're probably going to need a special permit. That's how I would read this. And if you're not an owner of the lot, this is poorly written, but the short answer is that if you're not going to be occupying the lot, basically if it's a non-owner occupied, they're going to permit them, but they're going to require them to have a special permit. That's how I read this.
well, that's what it is. If it's,
A is hard to understand. Yeah.
if it's not any of those three, it requires a special permit. It's essentially what
Right,
it-
right. Okay,
I would have written a little bit differently, but yeah.
okay, and the 14 days, are they saying that if it's more than 14 days, it's not a short-term rental? It's a long-term rental?
Apparently, yes.
Okay.
The short answer is yes.
Okay,
Rented in whole or in part for any person or entity for a period of up to, but no more than 14 days.
okay, okay, that's interesting. I mean, I wouldn't think of 3 weeks as a long-term rental, but I'm not objecting to it.
Yeah, it's more liberal, actually.
Yeah,
Vince, here, I had a question. Actually had my hand raised. If they're only going to allow a certain number of these, perhaps they should disclose what that number is, because if they're only going to allow, say, X number, and then say John Q. Public number 3 comes along and they say, whoops, sorry, but you're a little too late over that number.
Right. Well, right now they're reserving the right to cap them. So right now there is no cap.
The law they're passing has no cap. They would
There's
have
no
to
cap.
amend
They're
it.
just leaving it to later.
Put a
They
cap in.
do, yeah. So
All
at
right.
some point there is no cap.
All right, so then
They're
if
being honest. They're basically telling you that they may cap it in the future.
Yes.
all right, thanks.
Anything else?
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion?
Wait, I'm sorry, but so any one property owner is permitted one. So that means, what if you own 3 properties? You only get one. Is that not one?
That's what we're asking for a clarification on, Amanda.
Okay.
For me,
Here,
I'm
let me
not
bring
sure
it
what
up
they're
again.
trying to get at here, but that's what we're asking.
I'll
for
bring
a
the exact line up
clarification.
and it's this is it. This is the any one property owner is permitted one bed and breakfast STR within the town of Shongum. Now, I don't know who the anyone. My question is who's the any one property owner, but it does limit whoever that owner is to one B&B. But it doesn't make reference.
What is that you could be a property owner in Florida.
Yeah, and it doesn't make reference to whether they're part of a limited liability corporation or other such entity as well.
We think what they're trying to do here is trying to prevent people from buying multiple properties within the town and owning them. That's what we think we're trying to do, but it's not written well, and I'm not sure why you would want to do that. So I kind of understand why you want to do. Go ahead, Mike.
The key is what Rob is saying, though, because otherwise, somebody could start 6 different limited liability companies
Yep.
with
I
6
get you,
different
Mike. Yep.
names, and it's 6 different property owners, but it's really all one group of people or one person.
Right. Other towns are limiting
And that's
interest.
going to be the way they work around it. If
Yeah.
so,
I think it was the town of
or-
Marlborough that said limited interest in one ownership per person.
Yeah.
Per
Anyway,
Should that be,
still waiting for,
should that be a little bit
Still waiting for
more
a motion.
defined? Because if you're saying any one property owner is permitted one, within the town, okay, then you become which district? What zoning district? Are you gonna allow it in the entire town, or are you gonna allow it in a certain zoning district?
yeah,
So-
that's why we're asking for clarification, Vince, that's in the recommendations. We're asking for clarifications with respect to this.
All right, thank you.
I think I may have missed something. They're saying BB/STR. Does that mean bed and breakfast?
Yeah, these cover bed and breakfast and short-term rentals.
Okay, so they're lumping them together in one category.
Correct.
Okay.
Drew, I already made a motion to accept that.
Yep, we have a second.
I'll second it, McLaughlin.
Okay. Any further discussion? I will make a comment, not necessarily to this one, but I'm still struggling with trying to create an STR code for our town. And the more you get into it, the more complicated and difficult it gets. And it's a tough area to try to control. It's constantly changing. I learned something that we just tried to put in our new code was we're trying to get it finalized to come back to the county. Is there something out there called rental arbitrage? I think it's the right way to pronounce it. Somebody rents something long-term and then turns around and sublets it short-term, but with or without the owner knowing about it. Anyway, all those opposed? And any abstentions? Very good. Motion passes. And I think we're on to our last one at Wawarsing. Is there any recusals for Wawarsing? Okay, Rob, it's all yours.
All right, last one, Lumen Place of Worship. This is, I'm gonna go to Ariel first. They'll be illuminating. Sorry, couldn't resist.
Let's go to the videotape.
Yes. Anyway. So you may recognize where we're at. I'll just bring it up like this. So that is 209. And then you have Honk Lake. There. Here's your property in here, this large property in here. And I don't know, I don't think I brought in, I'll show you guys later how narrow this road is later, but there is an existing road that comes about, let me annotate this, out here. And it's going to go up, and there's basically a place of worship about in there, 4,800 square feet, 52 parking spaces, LED full cutoff fixtures. Let's see, let me get to the actual site plan now. And they have preliminary approval of their septic already by way by health department. So we do have a SWIP summary, but we do not have a full SWIP. So that's going to be one of the required modifications, by the way. There was some, you're going to see the, so like I said, there it goes up through the hills and up through stages to get to the facility here. There's a zoom in of it, and you're going to see the road profile as we go through it. There's some we need some comments and look at cut and fill with respect to this one. There's the well over in there. Let me annotate. Here's your wellhead. This is your place of worship, 4,800 square feet. There's a little bit of a turnaround here. Parking is downhill. Over in here, 20-foot poles. Lighting levels are okay. 20, I believe there's a 20-foot wide road up it, which is which is more room than Upper Jenny Brook Road has. There's your road profile. So you had a -2 slope at one point, and they're doing some substantial regrading to this road as they go up it.
And everyone should know that this is a formerly owned by Peckham Materials. It is one big,
That's right.
huge gravel. Yeah.
Yes, that's the other issue. It's a gravel and former sand mine.
So regrading this is not a difficult chore, but we should know how they're going to regrade it in terms of
Right.
where the material is going to go.
Right. So they have a decent landscaping plan, lighting plan. So final department health review, sustainability comments that we've made earlier with respect to others, energy sources, solar. I don't know if you need EV charging station at this location, but yeah. Full SWIP with an erosion sediment control plan. We note that again, that's former gravel pit set sand mine, and that there's substantial cut and fill. We don't know how much it is, but it looks like there's quite a bit. And then we have some questions about the road.
This is the public road, not
the public
this is
road.
the
It's part of
public
the
road,
project. And let me just show it to you real quick here. Try and bring this up. Bear with me. So, come on. There we go. So here we go. This is Jenningbrook Road. Pretty narrow.
Wow.
And this is about, let me see, I think I'm pretty close to where it goes in. Let's see. Yeah, pretty much right on top of it there. So, yeah.
What's the
Rob?
actual width of that, Rob?
Yeah, what, Mike?
No, go ahead and answer Drew's question first. Then I had a question.
I don't know
about
what the width of the road is, but
I mean,
I'd be hard to say
ain't
that's
much.
even 50. I doubt that's 15 feet. Maybe it's 15 feet. I don't
It
know.
doesn't look like 2 cars could pass on that road.
It's narrow.
No shoulders.
Yeah.
You also
guardrail.
You saw the guardrail was down. This is an old photo though, so I don't know what the current condition is. I'd have to drive myself. This is a 10-year-old photo. So, but I don't think there's substantial changes to it. And I think the road that's existing up there was put in after this photo as well, because I can't find it on here, even though they say it's an existing road.
Okay.
Rob, my question on the mine, was that a DEC controlled mine that
It was,
there was a mine
it
land
was never
reclamation
mined, Mike.
plan? Oh, it was
Yeah,
never
never
mined?
mined. It was just owned by Peckham Materials, but you can clear from the air photo that it was never mined.
Okay.
This
Are
is
they
Harry
looking-
Hansen. I was on that road this fall, and it's no different than what's in that picture.
That's what I thought.
Whoa.
Is there any utilities going up this road, or are they not going to use any utility?
Let's see. Yeah, I'm not I don't see a utility plan associated with it. So
Well, they had a lighting plan, so
they have a
must-
lane plan. So they must have electricity going up it.
And fire department access?
Yeah, we should, and that should be a
Well, that's the
comment as
whole
well.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole question.
With
Clearly
the ability
the
to
road
serve.
into the site is better than the road to the site.
Mhm.
So, but the real issue here is how is getting to the site from fire companies, emergency response folks, the actual traffic in and out of the site from the church. And then if they start holding special events up here, then there's some real concern about the road,
Right.
the road's ability to deal with this.
And that is a comment that came up. This is a 113 acre parcel. They're only using a very small portion of it. So we don't know, at
Dennis,
what-
how, just from a hypothetical question though,
Yeah.
it's a town controlled road and a town maintained road. I would think the applicant's got no control over that. So,
Well,
obviously it's a
short-
concern, but it's up to the town to, if the town has not maintained the roads to their own standards, that's an
Well, the
issue.
short answer is that seeker allows for mitigation, off-site mitigation.
Okay,
That's the short answer.
fair enough.
You know,
Fair
I
enough.
wouldn't, I wouldn't think you'd want to, I wouldn't think you'd want to say to yourself that you can't build what they're proposing, but I think you'd want to say to themselves that they can't hold special events up here and bring hundreds of people up. You know, that's what I think you'd want to do without mitigation. You know,
Hello, Dennis.
hey, Victor.
Dennis, this is Victor. Do you read me?
Yeah, we hear you, Victor.
I read you, Victor.
Well, I lived in that area. I lived down on the foot of the hill there, and that was mine. They used that for Route 52 and a lot of other roads and a lot of construction there. It was mine, I don't know, 40 years ago. And,
maybe,
and the
okay.
road has been, we couldn't, it was John Arborio and some other ones, whatever. They did a lot of construction. And there is some environmental issues. They had a screening plant there. And it's not bus worthy. The fire department, they're not gonna, you could hardly get a truck through there. And what you see, and part of the road, it collapsed. That road isn't accessible because that was in the 70s. The top of the road, about a quarter of a mile away, it caved in. So you can't get access from Upper Jenny Brook Road. Okay.
So I stand corrected. It didn't look like in the photo that it was ever mine. So I stand
Sorry.
corrected. I apologize.
It was an active mine up until about 1972, 73, 74. And they had some environmental issues there, like the screening plant. Somehow or another, it caught fire, and they had a lot of whatever that the oil and all that stuff was all over the place. That's at the screening plant there. So there are some. They better do some soil testing there.
Okay.
How far is that parking lot from where the house of worship is going to be?
Let me bring up again. It's a fair distance. It's a fair walk. There is a sidewalk.
It's a fair distance.
And they're going to have to put sidewalk or something in there so people don't walk the road.
There looks like there's a little walkway right here.
They provided a walkway along it.
Yeah.
That does seem to be going up a hill, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the cut though. You're looking at existing grades, Vivian, and it is going up a hill, but you're looking at existing grades, but they're going to cut it.
Yeah.
That's
So
the
I
steep part of the hill.
I am concerned about how long that is. There are only a few parking spaces right by the building.
Yeah, they're the accessible ones,
there are-
and they have a turnaround.
Right, but
They're
how
going to
many?
do drop-offs is what they're going to do. That's the whole purpose. You do
I see.
drop-off and you do remote parking. And if things become an issue, I suspect they're going to run golf carts.
Uh-huh. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
churches usually patronized by senior citizens and who
Yeah.
may be driving by themselves and can't drop off. I would question how
No,
many parking spaces they have close to the building. I think that's not adequate.
Well, I just ran handicap close to the building. Everything's remote other than that.
I wonder why they're
I
doing
mean, if
that.
you,
I think it has
I
to do with the
suspect it has to
contours.
do with the ambiance of the church. You don't want to have a parking lot right next to the church, I
Also-
suspect.
I think the grades change quite a bit away from it, so that's where they can put it. It looks like.
Yeah.
Mhm. So that's the level spot.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah.
the sweet spot.
I noticed the parking spaces are sized 10 by 20. I suppose that's what their code calls for.
I believe so.
Yes, it
John
does.
Boker uses.
It definitely does, because it's a thorn in Barry Medenbach's side. He wants 9 by 18s.
All right. So requirements, I think I already went through them once, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
I did.
Yeah, you did.
All right. So
Okay, somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, Collier.
Dennis, are we adding any of what Victor said about the knowledge of the spills up there, or?
Yeah, no, I think we will, but let's get a second, Mike.
Okay, I'll second it.
All right.
Can
Now
we
there's additional
add the
discussion,
comment
right?
about-
Any additional discussion?
Yeah, can we add the comment in there about emergency services review?
Yeah, that's in there, right? I mean, the ability to serve, that covers that.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. Mike's question is, we want to add the comments about potential spills on the site from
Brilliant
Victor's
idea.
comments.
I mean, if Victor has knowledge of it, I think we should.
Okay.
When the
We'll raise the
screening
issue.
plant caught fire, it was a huge plant at that time, you know?
Yeah, okay. So with the
I
with
just
the
measured-
motion,
Excuse me, I was just gonna tell you, I just measured that road and it's 13 feet wide. So I'm worried about 2 cars coming down that road for certain.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It's amazing.
yeah,
And that's in a good day. If we get 6 inches of snow, they're not gonna have room to drive on that.
That is a good point.
we have a motion and second, and the idea of adding Victor's comments relative to the screening plant fire, we'll just note those as a potential. I don't know where the screening plant was relative to where the project is, and we'll just note that
You
they should.
could put
they
it in
should
as
make sure that
advisory
Yep.
comment. Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
And, I mean, the existing road was all the way back in here, so it may not be.
we don't know, yeah.
I don't know, so
Mm.
no idea. I'm not gonna assume it.
Right.
So,
Okay, any further discussion? All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Very good. That's the end of our referrals for tonight.
Before we break up, you guys were talking about, and ladies, talking about short-term rentals. Almost every town has come in with a different proposal on short-term rental. Would it make some sense to have a workshop and have the same language all across the county? Or are we taking away home rule?
The short answer is yes. The housing initiatives folks is working on a model ordinance for short-term rentals. And we'll put that out there. We have talked to multiple communities about short-term rentals. And I completely agree with your sentiment, Frank, that it makes sense that there would be common elements with respect to short-term rentals. I will also tell you that the folks that write these are local attorneys, and they can take anything that we produce as a model statute and rewrite it in various ways, shapes, or forms. And then there's the political calculations at the planning board level. And then finally, there's the public hearings that essentially drive some of these things. So I think one of the things that we can stress is common elements, and that's what we've tried to do in our reviews. And I'll leave it at that. I think one of the things that the board has done very well from the start with respect to short-term rentals, and also I would add with respect to solar facilities, is say these are the common things you need to think about, and we can have some pushback to communities that don't agree and run afoul of those things that we think are most important, like primary residence or non-owner occupied short-term rentals. But I don't want to push communities that want to innovate or want to go a different direction. That said, I'm all for a whole lot of symmetry between these statutes, but I don't see local governments giving up their ability to essentially rewrite whatever we give them.
I've actually seen a lot more consistency with respect to them, just slightly different nuances, but mostly the consistent, and our responses have been consistent at least. So.
And
it's a very hot topic in public hearings. I mean, we in Rochester, ultimately, we worked on it for 4 years, not the entire 4 years, but we started and we put it away for 2 years, and then we worked on it for another 2 years. So it's a hard sell. People are very passionate about it.
And we're in the process in Shandaken also, so I agree with both of, Dennis, I agree with what you said.
And in the Village of Sorbies.
Anyone make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll move it.
I'll
Second.
second.
Right. Anybody want to oppose? Nope. All right. Very good.
Thank you,
You
Drew.
guys
Have a
next
great one.
month.
Good
Thanks.
night.
Good night,
so
everyone.
much.
All right.
Good night, all.
Be safe.